Merry Christmas, Joe.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. How was
Happy holidays.
Did you take some time off? Have you taken some time off?
I have indeed. It's been it's one of those things where when you have your own business, as you are well aware, even time off is sort of spent thinking about the business and doing things for the business, but they tend to be more of the relaxed sort of lean back moments, which are really nice to have. So yes, I've been thinking about and writing and doing some things for the business, but mostly it's been, some time away, which has been really wonderful. And
now, are you an end of the year? Like, I got to set my goals for 2020, or got to get my, written goals down, journal. Like, how do you do you prepare for 2020 that way?
I absolutely do. Yeah, I absolutely do. I take typically the week of between Christmas and New Year, which is, of course, when this will air. So as you are listening to this, I will be deep in my written goals, my journaling, my reflections on the year past, and my plans. It's also the time when I typically clean up all my workflow that has sort of fallen off over the last 11 months, so I'll, get my new notebook, get a new journal, get a new, clean up my Dropbox, do all that stuff to be ready for the new year. But mostly, it's journaling, setting goals, doing a lot of writing and that sort of thing. And I know you do too, don't you?
I do. I'm switching it up this year. So normally, and you know how big I am with my journal, and generally I take a deep look at the different categories that I want to make an impact on. So it'll be, career focus. I have different categories. So career, family time, spiritual, physical, and then I write 2 or 3 things that I really want to focus on under each one of those. And I try to put down some kind of time element or number, because I want to make sure that I hit a goal able to measure it. That's what I've done for the past 10 years. It's worked great. But I'm going to switch it up this year, because I read about, and I talked about this in my newsletter. Did you see that that Warren Buffett's 25 and 5 strategy? Do you know of it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I do know of it. Yeah. I've just recommended it to a friend of mine. Yeah.
So I'm going to do that this year, because I don't really have the career goals that I used to have, for some obvious reasons. So I have more family goals and spiritual goals and physical goals. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. But so basically, for people that don't know Warren Buffett's 25 and 5 strategy, you spend however long you need to spend. In this case, I've been going on for at least a week, and I don't have 25 yet. But you write down 25 things you want to accomplish over the next 365 days. So right now I have, 15. And you get to 25, and then as soon as you get to 25, you spend another few days, and you select the 5. You circle the 5 that you want to accomplish in the next year. And then once you circle those 5, all you do is focus on those 5, and you completely ignore the other 20. So it's this less is more type strategy, where you're just going to say, look, I'm absolutely going to complete these 5 things. And then you don't look at, let's say, goal number 6 or the 6th thing that you wrote down until you get the first 5 done. And so that's what I'm trying, Robert. I don't know if it's going to work. Hopefully it will. And I'm going to go do that and see what's what. But yeah, I obsess about this stuff. You know me.
Yeah,
I totally
exactly. Absolutely.
Stuff.
Well, I know one thing that's not on either of our 25 lists, which is to be watching a Super Bowl with our football teams.
Okay, here's the you had to bring it up. I was going to go a whole episode without talking about it. Here's the thing.
Well, it'll get us to the intro of the show faster, I suspect.
Yeah. Here's the quick thing about the Dallas Cowboys and the Cleveland Browns. First, I feel bad for your Cowboys, because all they had to do was win that game. But
all they had to do was beat a bunch of scrubs from Philadelphia, and they couldn't do that.
But the same thing with the Browns. They have so much talent, and they lost some games that they absolutely should have won. And if there was ever a year, kind of the same with the position of the Cowboys, if there was ever a year that you could slip into the playoffs with a 8-8 or a 9-7 mark, it would have been this year for both our teams.
Right.
And alas, But you're not out of it, right?
No,
By the time this airs, but
by the time this airs, yes, it'll be one way or the other, and I'm expecting it 100% to be the bad way.
But as you said the last episode, I think you said Philly just wants to keep giving this to you. So maybe they will.
Maybe they will. Maybe they'll go lose to the Giants, and so you can tweet at me if it didn't happen.
Oh, okay. Here's what we'll do.
Maybe we should start our prediction.
Yeah, why don't you start? Let's just get started.
All right, let's roll.
And now for your listening pleasure, here's Polizzi and Rose, P&R with This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 224 of P&R's This Old Marketing, recorded Thursday, December 26th, 2019. And with me, as always, is my good friend, my colleague, and a guy who's a lot cuter than that Baby Yoda plush doll, Mr. Joe Polizzi. How are you, my friend?
Same amount of hair on our face.
Yeah?
Well, Baby Yoda doesn't have as much as regular Yoda does.
You watching the show?
I'm going to wait till they're all out, and then I'm going to binge it all at one time. That's
all right.
That's the plan. You've been watching, right?
I have been watching, and it's been I'm delighted. It's just such a fun show. I really like it.
Okay, we haven't even talked about this. Give out of 10, how would you rate Star Wars?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I'm going this weekend. I have not seen it yet. Yeah.
Oh, I was looking forward to totally talking about it, but
yeah,
I think you'll like it. But
I've heard that I will like it. All the people that I know and share a similar sensibility to Star Wars as I do have really enjoyed it. And then the people who don't know anything about Star Wars really enjoyed it, and then the people who haven't enjoyed it are people who, they're very particular about
the ones that got to get into the details and say you can't do this and this and
right.
this and whatever and
exactly.
So those people just lead unhappy lives. That's
exactly. Well, exactly right.
Exactly. That's all. So hey, I'm excited about this. We're gonna do. I guess that we've been doing a prediction show. This is probably our 6th or 7th, if I had to guess, prediction show.
Yeah.
So
we used to do it, of course, in every year in the beginning of the year because we were weekly, and now that we are, twice a month now, it's the perfect one because this will air literally as the new year is coming up. So it's we're not even as we do this, we're not even in January 1st yet. So it's truly a predictions show just on the eve of the new year. So it'll be fun.
And if I do remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that we've always been right. I mean, if you go back to all the shows, and some don't happen right away, but they pretty much all have happened. So,
of course, yes. That's how I'm going anyway.
This is such an important. I mean, the listeners of this podcast, they're blessed.
They truly are.
This is truth. The truth with the capital T. That's gonna happen right here.
Oh my!
So how do you want to do this? You are the leader here.
Yeah. So let's just tee this up and say that normally we would do here our top of the show where we would select an article to talk about that is to the theme of the show. And given that the theme this episode is all about predictions, we are going to trade off in predictions. And I'm going to let you go first, of course, because age before beauty. And I think we'll do probably 3 or 4 each. We've got a number of predictions teed up here, and then we'll do a couple of raves at the end of the show. So just why don't you kick us off with your first prediction and tell me what's going to happen in 2020?
I would be happy to. And first, a disclaimer: you and I have already talked about this. Mine are big, bold, vague predictions, right. And yours
chocolate cake will continue to be tasty.
Yours are smaller and more helpful to people. So
I don't know if they're any more helpful, but they are smaller in scale. Yes.
So my first one and I've been talking about this in a lot of my speeches, but I will call this the move to less content and towards simplicity for marketers, content marketers specifically. And when I did my keynote at Content Marketing World, I talked about this idea of less content but better. And I guess the best way to describe it is that we've gotten into a rut, I would say, of producing content on platforms because we can today. And that's the wonderful thing, right? We can produce all kinds of content, a ton of content on all these platforms. And if you do the research, if you talk to a number of marketers, that's just not working. More content and more platforms generally is a losing proposition. It's not working. And so you're starting to see this slow, at least I'm hopeful, and I've been talking to a few marketers that are getting behind this strategy of killing off things in certain platforms that we're not giving full attention to and focusing on one or two platforms and being great in those platforms to really make an impact and on our customers' lives, their jobs, and creating better customers as we want to do in content marketing. So, and I like to think of it in this idea of, I call it content energy. I don't have a better term at this point, but we have a finite amount of content energy with our marketing departments, which means that we can only focus on so many things at a time. And if we say, okay, we're going to do a podcast, an e-newsletter, a print magazine, an event, all these things at one time, we've got LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and all these different programs and YouTube. Well, I think that's a recipe for mediocrity. And mediocrity doesn't cut it today. You're not going to cut through any of the clutter. You're just going to be doing lots of things, a lot of, I would call it, unimportant activities. And I think what we have to do into 2020 is we have to start looking at those things that aren't making an impact or that we're not giving our full attention to and can't be the best in these certain areas, and kill off those things and take that content energy and put it to one or two things that we can really make an impact toward. And that's my prediction for 2020, is that I think you're going to see more and more enterprises and small businesses just say, this is what we can be great for our customers in these things and focus on these things and start killing off a number of activities that we've just been doing poorly or as I said, mediocre. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, well, here's the one twist I would add to that prediction, because I agree with it. I would add the twist that much of this is going to not come from a recognition of what you're talking about, this sort of mediocrity and need to get sharper and higher quality and all of the wonderful things that we talked about. But I think a lot of this is going to come from the recognition from companies that content and good content is really expensive and hard. And there is just so much waste happening right now at different parts of the organization. And at some point, and we're seeing this now from the clients that we're working with, at some point somebody goes, how much are we spending on all this content? And it gets a bad rap. Content gets a bad rap because of it, because what ends up happening is that they do some kind of cost analysis and figure out, holy moly, we are spending a lot of money here. And so there's going to be a move for, I think, we're going to talk a little bit about politics a little bit, but certainly from the economy standpoint, I think you're going to start to see a lot more of the do more with less kind of idea, just generally with marketing. And so I think content will be a big driver of that. It's like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it, we're going to do it well, and we're going to do it at a considered pace. And then that will start to give rise to what you're talking about, which is just getting better at it.
It's just like a lot of our peers, and I get why this happens, but they're just doing stuff. They're busy all the time, doing so many different things that, and I don't want to downplay this, but this is where I think we have to get wise in 2020. These things are unimportant. They're unimportant to the person that's doing it, and they're truly unimportant to the customer, and that's why we're doing this. So stop.
Yeah.
You really, and that's, how many marketers have you talked to, and they go through their day and all the things they're working on, and I'm like, how many of those things are really making an impact on you, your job, or your customers, or your business? And they're like, well, not really, none of it.
Yeah,
because you're just all over the place.
It's what we call, we've been calling small marketing, right? We are so busy doing small marketing. I'll put this into context for you. We worked with one of the biggest brands in the world, and I say that not to puff out my chest, but the point will become clear. Truly one of the largest content media social brands in the entire planet, and their marketing team. And the marketing team that was there was bonused on how much content they could create. And the way that it qualified to be quote unquote created was that it lived somewhere online. And so what you did was you've created an economy in this marketing department where the 64 people in marketing who were working on this, all these marketing managers, were all bonused and KPI'd on how much content they could create and get out somewhere. So they were constantly in this sort of open air Marrakesh marketplace, sort of selling their content wares to internal channel managers, website managers, blog managers, social media managers, all the people who controlled these quote unquote channels, and trying to get their content out. And once they got their content out, that was a box that they could check. They made their KPI, and then it didn't matter. And it didn't matter what the content did at that point, whether it closed a piece of business, whether it converted a person into a subscriber. It didn't matter. As long as they created something that lived, then their little world was fine. And that's not a strategy. That's just activity.
Well, I guess that's the core of this is really take a hard look at the activities that stop saying. It goes along the line with stop saying yes to everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Please, 2020 can be the year of no. That would be fantastic, but don't take that too far. Okay.
No soup for you.
All right. Let's go to yours, sir.
Yeah, I have one that I'm really passionate about, and I wanted to make this my first one because it's one that I'm going to do some more writing on. We have been working with some companies that are thinking about this and that are thinking hard about this, and it's starting to become a content opportunity. And so, put very simply, I believe that in this coming year, what we're going to see is, whether we call it content marketing or brand journalism or just branded content, whatever you like, right? I'm going to use the word brand journalism here for a very specific reason. It's going to become a social corporate responsibility opportunity, so commonly known as SCR, right? And so what I mean by that is that right now, this idea of purpose-led brands is pretty big right now. It's a big opportunity. There's tons of research on this. Accenture did a huge research study on this, where they looked at 30,000 consumers across the globe, 35 different countries, and they found that 62% of consumers these days want companies to take stands on current and broadly relevant events in the world, and that basically they'll buy in higher preponderance to that. And so this marketing opportunity, this branding opportunity, has given rise to all sorts of things that we've heard about. Is the idea of purpose washing, and that there's an unfocused approach, and like everything else in marketing, done poorly, it's not working very well. And so one of the things that I have started to see is that this idea of purpose usually expresses itself in things like, we're going to help clean up trash on the beaches, and we're doing this thing with the way that we make our products. They're all going to be natural materials, something around either diversity and inclusion, the environment, or some form of, sort of nonprofit idea that they're out there changing the world. And I think that journalism, and we've talked about this on this show before, becoming a journalistic entity, whether that's, as we talked about on this show, buying a local or regional newspaper, whether that's launching some new journalistic entity, doing investigative journalism, doing something around the idea of looking at the creation of content as a corporate responsibility to being a good citizen in the world is going to become a thing. It's going to become an effort by brands to bolster up what they can do. I think especially in the coming year with the election and everything else, I think we're going to see an opportunity from these brands to start to really use the idea of social corporate responsibility as a means of funding great content experiences that are inspirational or educational or useful in some way. And that will become a business case for these businesses to do that.
I love that. I agree with it. You and I have a friend named Russell Sparkman that used to talk about purpose-led content marketing and still does, actually.
Yeah,
but 10 years ago was talking about this purpose-led thing. And it seems like 2019, we really hit the high point of that, where people started to say, yes, that the whole idea of corporate responsibility is a goal behind this thing, and we are going to take a stand. And outside of necessarily counting the number of things you're going to sell behind it, but that we need to position ourselves behind something, and it makes a difference. And I mean, how many times have we talked about the idea of a large corporate brand buying a local newspaper?
Yeah. And
you just mentioned that. And I think that I'm so surprised that we haven't seen that happen. But I think it's going to be, hey, we need to do this for the betterment of our community because the dollars aren't there or they're not going to survive. We need local news and we're going to support that. I mean, you could put that behind any kind of other thing, that whether it's climate change, environmental, whatever it is. But I totally agree with that. Do you have a prediction on one brand that might take this more seriously than another one that maybe hasn't yet?
I think you're going to see, I think you're going to see a technology brand do this faster than not. I mean, it is astounding to me that we haven't seen Facebook do this yet. And it is astounding to me that we haven't seen some of the other bigger social media brands do this, because they're the perfect. They're the perfect candidate for it, to be one of the early adopters and leaders in this space. But I think you are seeing it already in some, in small ways. You're seeing it at the retail and consumer, business to consumer space. So we're seeing, we've talked about REI before and sort of their efforts. Mm-hmm. We've talked about Patagonia. We've talked about, some P&G does some of this, where they create, whether you call them publications or not is independent, but they tend to lean more toward talking about some public good rather than sort of, an entertainment thing, like a Mel magazine or something like that. They're actually talking more about some doing, how they're doing good in the world and telling those stories and all those kinds of things. What I think is going to happen is some of those either consumer-oriented brands, or the prediction would be one of these technology, sort of companies, to really come out and do something big and meaningful here. So for example, would it surprise me to hear that Starbucks would launch a daily newspaper? No, it would not. Would it surprise me to hear that a Schneider Electric or a General Electric or an Emerson or somebody like that would launch a big, funded university for kids that's for free, right? Free, and not just, teaching electronics or electrical engineering or something like that, but truly a full on university that is offered for free. No, it would not surprise me to do that or to hear that. Those kinds of things I think we're going to start to see, emerge next year as a differentiating strategy in social corporate responsibility. Yeah,
and I think that even with small businesses, you could do that locally. Really, I mean, if you just think about it.
Of course. It doesn't have to be big businesses. Yeah, this is some small or medium-sized businesses, quite frankly, that could buy the small town newspaper and start becoming the newspaper, right? Just do it as a community service. And
we are going to will this into existence, Robert.
Exactly.
You and I and the 3 listeners, the power of our 3 listeners, we're going to make this happen. This I think this goes right into, if you don't mind, I'll go right into my second prediction because it fits really well with yours. And prediction number 2 for me is a slow move back to print. And I think we've been seeing this. We've talked about it on the show that print has done print is doing now what happened to vinyl, where vinyl dipped a couple years ago. It saw the lowest number of vinyl records sold, and all of a sudden, slowly it creeps back up. And now I think I saw that there are more vinyl records sold than CDs now. So that's kind of interesting that we've seen.
That's amazing.
Isn't that something? How we've seen the technology move. We're going to see the same thing with print, and we're going to see that for a few reasons. And when I say a slow move back to print, this is specifically with non-media companies buying and or launching print initiatives. Buying as in we talked about, you could buy a magazine, trade magazine, newspaper, just like you and I just talked about, or we could see our own launches of things, coffee table type magazines, books that you're going to see brands get into, and new magazine launches as well. So the first thing is, we've seen this for a long time, but it's amazing that more brands haven't taken this opportunity. Is there's just a lack of competition through the post office today, outside of what we're seeing delivered through around the holiday season. If you see just magazines, so you see what you get all your letters, your bills, your postcards, those things, junk mail that you don't care about. But what we could always count on is you'd get those wonderful print glossy magazines that you'd look forward to later, sitting down with that lean back technology and learning something like I used to get Fast Company magazine or Inc magazine, and those things. I really looked forward to getting those. I think you're going to see, whereas you have traditional media companies that can't support that type of model, or it's harder to support that model with advertising and subscription, you're going to see brands that are looking for, hey, we just want to create better customers. We're going to measure it in different ways. We're going to launch these magazines. We're going to buy these magazines. In the acquisition area, we saw, Raspberry Pi, the hardware company. They bought 2 publications in photography and electronics from Dennis Publishing. We saw, Airbnb bought Atlas Obscura. You're going to see these things start to happen more and more. So one, that less competition. And the second thing, I've been seeing a lot of this, reading a lot of this on different media sites, this underground movement off of devices, off of social media, off of email. And you've got people taking sabbaticals and time off, or they're saying, I'm limiting my time during the day. And you've got, even your iPhone will tell you, you spent an hour on your phone. That's X% more or less than you spent last week on your phone. You've got people more cognizant about this. We've already seen a lot of the data come out from research saying how destructive and addictive some of these patterns are. When you're so addicted to your device, and there are people that are trying to say, hey, I want to do something about this. And what are they going to from their media choices? In a lot of cases, they're going to print books and print magazines. And I think now is a real sweet spot opportunity for brands to get involved in this area, as long as they're not looking to make money directly off. You're not going to sell advertising and make a lot of money off of the print device. But if you're looking to change behaviors and to create better communications with your customers, there might not be a better way in 2020 than to do it, except for print. So I don't know if you have a take on that, Robert, but that's my take.
I do, and as you might expect, and it's as always when you talk about this stuff, it's to agree that we are going to see. I mean, we're certainly seeing it from a marketing perspective, and. I mean, on the magazine side, is this the time for a brand to go pick up a big consumer magazine and get behind that? I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
What I am seeing, however, is that the cost of doing something really beautiful in a print format has come down so substantially that it's not a huge risk to do something either infrequently, maybe once a quarter or once a month if you're a bigger brand or something like that, and actually do something that's worth holding in your hand and does give that different experience. The one thing that I will absolutely 110% agree on is the idea of books, right? So there was a story that we would have covered were this to be a news show this week, which is about the decade of, as we enter a new decade here, and how the 2010s were supposed to be the era of the ebook, and it never happened. That it has basically, ebooks have flattened at around 20% of the market. And the young people out there, sort of, both Generation Z as well as millennials, have not taken to ebooks. They love their phones. They're in social media. They're definitely looking through their phones and stuff. But if they want a book, if they're going to go read a book, they want the print version, and they're reading print, and it's still 80% of the market, and not looking to be decreased anytime soon. And just like you said, with a brand opportunity like what we see with Airbnb taking over Atlas Obscura, the idea of brands writing print books or writing books that actually come out in print, or acquiring those things, travel logs, all those kind of things that are so nice to have in a print book. That form factor is something that I think is a huge opportunity for marketers to get back into something that's not digital.
The real quick point with that article, and what I'll link this in the show notes too, just so we have it, because I think it's important. That article also talks about how the big 5 and 6 book publishers, they can't discount their print book, their ebooks to a point that brands and individuals can as well. So I know we're going back and forth ebooks and print books, but when you talk about an opportunity in just books in the book category, there's more flexibility in pricing and distribution with people that aren't affiliated with the big publishers. So there's a real opportunity there for brands to get in and say, okay, well, I want to price my ebook, print book certain ways. You can do that better than you get a traditional publisher, which is just crazy.
Of course,
but it's true.
It's the same thing as movies. I mean, not to get off on a rant or a rave or anything here, but we've been talking about this for 10 years. If you look at the production value and the budgets and the way those are done at the movie studios, if you have a Disney or you have a Marvel or you have any kind of movie studio, they have to make a certain amount of margin to make a movie work, right? Yeah. So they have to be able to distribute it. They have to be able to put together all the sort of pieces of the puzzle to make a margin number work, to make a movie a green light. A brand doesn't have to do that. A brand like Lego can come in and go, yeah, we don't need our piece. That one piece that you would have normally had to fill, we don't need that. We don't need to make, a huge amount of, all we need to do is make our costs back, because quite frankly, if we're going to make a great movie, we're making a great movie to basically sell more product. And, if you start looking at the calculus, even the Star Wars sort of franchise now, we start seeing things like Mandalorian. We start seeing all these Star Wars movies. We see the latest Star Wars movies. The Wall Street Journal came out with an article and said, hey, this thing is, it's not making the same kind of money that others before. Oh, it's not as big a hit. They don't care. They don't care that it's not a huge hit. They're going to sell so many products with that Baby Yoda doll alone pays for Mandalorian season 2.
Isn't that something?
That's the magic here that brands can get their arms around. If we can start doing that, that's where we can start making magic happen in a media world that can be monetized in different ways. Somebody should write a book about that.
Well, it's funny. I was saying, I think I remember this book, Killing Marketing, talking about this. We are here right now with 2020 with the opportunity for brands to undercut traditional media for just that reason. Traditional media, and for all the flaws of traditional media and executives in traditional media, this is the biggest one, is their inability to look at different revenue ways to generate revenue and profit than just the traditional methods of advertising, subscription, and direct revenue off the content. And if you look at the other ways that you can, there are 10, and we talk about them in Killing Marketing, what an opportunity there are for brands. And you talked about the Lego movie. You got that Lego Master Builders television show coming up. You can guarantee that Lego doesn't care. They don't have to make a dime. They could lose a substantial amount of money off the show itself just because of the additional product sales that are going to happen.
That's right.
And it's just, it's amazing that more traditional media executives haven't thought about
well, they're
this.
figuring
And I think
this
there
out,
are,
right?
but
they're figuring it out, right? The media companies are figuring this out. Publishers are figuring this out. And so that's the urgency. Whenever I talk to a client about this stuff, I'm like, the urgency here is that they are starting to figure this out. They are starting to figure out how to add those multiple revenue lines and compete with you, right? The Dennis Publishing's out there in the world that are selling cars
BuzzFeed.
now, and and BuzzFeed that are getting into product plays and all that sort of stuff. They're figuring it out. So the opportunity, here we are in 2020. The opportunity is nigh, and so let's get to it.
Okay, I want to hear your
my third or second. I guess I'm on my second prediction, aren't I? Mine here is about technology, and I think 2020 is going to be finally the year where the ad tech market takes a huge, probably crippling hit, and MarTech basically swallows up everything else in its path. And so you're going to start to see technology businesses, really bolster their MarTech capabilities and selling into the marketing groups and the ad tech sort of market, the data scraping, the ad display, the sort of syndication of advertising and all of that. Really take a big consolidation first and then a big hit second. So I think that's going to, and I think the driver of all of that is going to be data and privacy. And I think it's fine. 2020 is finally going to be when businesses start to take things like the California data privacy, which is the CCPA, and the GDPR in Europe, and then the others as they start to come online. I think 2020 is finally the year that, and I think a lot of that will be driven by the politics of the election. And I think we're going to start to see a big consumer interest in this stuff.
Can you give an example of when you say the ad market takes a hit? Paint a picture for the listeners.
Yeah, there's a whole sector of the technology space called ad tech, right? Which includes things like programmatic, which are basically using third-party data and or first-party data, but using data to programmatically serve up ads across networks or across different platforms and personalize, quote unquote, those ads that you see. The data that they're leveraging and using is at the heart of what we're talking about with things like GDPR and CCPA. And so everything from at the tectonic scale, something like Facebook, right, which is using everything from everything you post to everything you look at online to everything you might be saying in the privacy of your own home to target ads to you. All of that, the technology and the commercialization, more importantly, of that technology is going to come under serious pressure then we've talked about it on this show so many times. There's tons of trends that are leaning that way. What has to replace it, however, then, is the ability for us as marketers and businesses to do business. And I think what you're going to start to see is that ad tech will start repositioning itself using privacy, first-party data, and the idea of more internally focused features and benefits, which will make it start looking a lot more like MarTech. In other words, so what would classically be called a ad tech programmatic ad serving technology will fold up underneath as a feature of some MarTech solution, which is helping people manage content or, provide organization or workflow or the idea of organizing their teams better, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the benefits that it'll have is helping you target internal content more, in a more effective way using the internal data that you manage yourself and blah, blah, blah. In other words, that sort of cross network, cross platform, cross, programmatically looking at technology to do everything from scraping data to pulling all that stuff together is going to take 2020 is the year that it finally dips below, what we would, I guess, call, sort of viability.
Well, I would agree with that, but I would also say that one of the reasons why the ad tech market is going to take a hit, and a lot of, there's a lot of marketers that don't know about the new policies or are unsure what's relevant to them. Like, you don't realize that for the California law that you have to be, I think it's $25 million in business to California. And so look, people aren't looking at the fine print right now. I think the bigger issue in all of this is the fact that, and it's already happened, but it's even happening to a greater extent. Google and Facebook is swallowing up everything in advertising.
That's right.
In ad tech. There's not much left. And I think that when you have marketers that, how they said, you just choose IBM so you don't get fired. I think that's what you're gonna see. Everyone's just say, I'm gonna choose Google for all and Facebook for all my advertising, and they're gonna take care of it. And pretty much 95% of your issues are taken care of then, if you just go with those two companies.
Yeah, and what I think you're going to start to see, and you're already starting to see the beginnings of this, is you're going to see those two companies start to become more MarTech-like.
Yeah.
You're going to start seeing solutions from Google and Facebook and LinkedIn, which you're already starting to see, especially LinkedIn, where they're helping marketers do many of the things that they need to do. So if you're Adobe or you're OpenText or you're IBM or you're Microsoft or you're Oracle, or you're, basically anybody selling enterprise level MarTech solutions to, larger and or medium-sized businesses, right? This affects the HubSpots and the Infusionsofts of the world as well. I think you're going to start to see Facebook and Google and and LinkedIn become much more competitive with you.
Do we have time for one more quick one each before we?
Yeah, let's do quick. Let's do one more quick one each, quick, and then we'll of course talk about the prediction of our wonderful sponsor.
Okay, very good, very good. So I'm just going to do very quick 3 events. We don't even have to talk about them if you want to, but 3 events that I think are going to happen and this is going to happen in 2020. The first one is Microsoft, and of course, Microsoft owns LinkedIn, is going to launch some kind of business network. When I'd say that, kind of like when we look at Disney Plus. So a Disney Plus for business, if you can think about it that way. I think Microsoft is primed to launch that. We've seen how great those masterclass videos are running on Facebook and everybody's signing up for those. I think you're going to see Microsoft launch something similar in business to business. So that's one event. The second event, Apple TV Plus is going to kill theirs, which is the least impressive launch I've ever seen Apple.
I didn't even know they had one.
They have a whole network that they launched a couple months ago, and it completely drowned when Disney Plus launched theirs. I think that, they've got a whole show that Jennifer Aniston and Steve Carell's on.
Oh, I thought you meant a business-to-business network.
No. Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're at their network. They're
no, and that's good. I've been watching the morning show. Is a fantastic show, by the way.
Yeah, but it's going to be gone in 2020. So you better just get your fill now. Because it's not going to be around.
Yeah,
that's fine. That's fine. You can disagree. You can have your time when you get to talk. So that's the second one that I think, and you can talk to that. And the third one is everyone's heard about these things called Deepfakes, where people can basically what do we say? Overlay somebody's face on top of somebody else.
Yeah, the artificial intelligence, basically.
Artificial intelligence, where you're looking at a video and you can't tell if it's Barack Obama or Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or anything like that. I think that those things go full blast right before the 2020 election. We're going to see some major news issues because certain sides are going to release videos and they're going to say, oh my God, this person did this, said this, was here. You can see it. There's proof. And it's all done AI, there will be a lot of people that won't know what to believe. and it's going to be a key underlying issue in the 2020 election. So those are the three things I think are going to happen in 2020.
Yeah, the only one I would disagree with, I think we're in for one hell of a roller coaster this coming year when it comes to politics. Yeah. I mean, it's just going to be, I'm not looking forward to that at all. But the deepfake stuff, I totally agree with. The only one of yours that you just rolled out there that I would disagree with is the Apple TV network. I think it'll do just fine. I think it'll be just lovely.
Why? It's the tortoise in the race right now.
It doesn't need to be. It doesn't because of the distribution that they have inherent in what they do. All it needs is good content. Now, all of this is predicted on good content coming up, and Morning Show was good. It was really, really good. I think they'll if they can solve and get a couple of really good must-see shows on there, I see no reason it can't survive.
Well, they should have bought Disney when they had the chance.
Well, all right. Sour grapes, my friend.
All right, you got one more quick.
Yeah, I do have one more. So I'll just do mine really quickly here. Segueing with my ad tech market taking a huge hit with MarTech consolidation and growth. I would put in there the idea of the big holding company agencies, the WPPs, the Publicis's, the Havas's, the networks out there. Continue their sort of, I don't know, dissolve is the right word or breakup is the right word. We start to see a lot more of independent agencies really growing and becoming more full service, as it were, sort of following along the lines of what the consulting firms are doing right now. So we start to see the strength continue to grow with companies like Accenture and PwC and Deloitte Digital and those kinds of things. And we start seeing the move sort of strategically from those bigger holding companies, the WPPs, to begin to create those kinds of firms, the kinds of firms like in other words, they're going to try and compete. The only way they can do that is to get out of that sort of holding company mentality and start to build in sort of more networked, grouped types of services, more structured, more like consulting firms. So I think we're going to start to see a big mess when it comes to the bigger holding companies, and that provides an opportunity for smaller and mid-sized agencies to come in and drink some milkshake.
And this seems to happen every 10 years or so, right?
Yes, that's right. It's a pendulum. This is definitely a pendulum that swings back and forth, and it may or may not go back. But yeah, it's swinging back that from what we saw about a decade ago as well. Yeah,
because there was quite an M&A environment the past few years for these small little agencies getting swallowed up, and now
well, it's the stubbornness I think you had of the Wall Street folks to keep up the stock price, and so there was a real pressure on the stock prices of the WPPs and the Publicis's of the world to continue to make acquisition to facilitate growth. Where, so that's just gone now. You just don't see that. I mean, the acquisitions are still happening, mind you, but I think the rise of the internal agency and the new competitiveness of the consulting firms, especially on the creative side, has really stemmed that strategy. So I think we'll start to see that pendulum swing back.
Do we have a sponsor?
I think we do. I think absolutely we do. I mean, it's our New Year sponsor. I think it's the best content event of 2020. The first one anyway of 2020.
The best, the first.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, it's not like we're biased or anything. Content Tech Summit is happening again in sunny San Diego, April 20th. Is that right? Yes, April 20th to 22nd, 2020. Wow. I talk about this every time. That's just a lot of twos. April 20th to 22nd, 2020.
The fact that it's happening on 420 is I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Just gonna leave it right there.
I'm just gonna
We're just gonna
throw
leave
that
that
out
there.
there. Yeah. Anyway,
You can go to contenttechsummit.com and sign up, and you need to do this immediately because this is going to be an awesome event. It's been, how many years has CMI been doing this event? It just gets better and better every year. We're going to talk about new technologies and innovative processes that are fundamentally changing marketing today. If you're with an enterprise brand or an agency really dealing with all the integrations that go in with content and marketing technologies, Robert just talked about this. This is a big issue. We got to be prepared for this, especially with all the regulations coming up. Content Tech will help you do that. We've got some amazing brands and speakers. So just go to the lineup and check it out. They add one every day. Really good speaker. You're going to love it. Go to contenttechsummit.com for more information on the Content Tech Summit. And if you are, by the way, if you're in the neck of the woods that it gets cold in February or March and you really want to get some nice weather, go to San Diego in April. Make yourself feel a lot better as well. contenttechsummit.com.
yeah, it's good stuff. We're gonna have. I mean, I'm helping, of course, with the speaker lineup this year, and I know we've got. So one of your favorites, Cleve Gibbon, is going to be there.
Oh, Cleve is fantastic.
He's amazing.
One of the best.
Wonderman Thompson. Speaking of larger agencies out there, we've got Meg from who runs. She runs content strategy at Hilton. We've got the woman who runs content strategy for MasterCard. We've got Microsoft, Airstream. I mean, we've got so many awesome brands and content strategy and content tech people from those brands. It's just it's shaping up to be really, really special. Well,
and of course you'll be there.
Whatever.
And are you speaking? You're speaking. I think
I am speaking as I normally do. Yeah. So yes, I will be teeing up my questions for the group as I normally do in my keynote. Usually my lenses that I want everybody to look through rather than sort of providing any pat answers. I usually have more questions than I do.
I already have the title for your speech. It's how I got all my 2020 predictions wrong. And of course, then I would be wrong too.
Yeah, how I was right about Disney, but wrong about everything else.
Wrong about everything. How can you be right? Well
yeah.
We'll
all right, folks. Well, it is now time for your favorite part of the show. We have just a few minutes left to talk about some of our rants and raves, and this because it's a new year and because it is our prediction show. Both Joe and I have quick raves that we want to talk about this episode. And so why don't, it's our rants and raves section, of course, where we go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave, and this is going to be raves. So Joe, why don't you go first?
Yes, I have this, and you might have heard of this book. It's been around for a while, but I thought that this book recommendation is perfect for anyone trying to get 2020 right or figure out your goals and strategies and how you can just be a better marketer all the way around, or a better person for that matter. So this is a book called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. It's the whole idea of doing, and I talked about this as my first prediction, so this book just falls in line with that. It's the idea of doing less but better. And this whole thing about we are, as human beings, we're just doing so many things, and most of the things that we are doing are unimportant. And this is the kind of book that gets you back on track, will get you focusing on what's important in your life and in your career. And it's a very short read. Get it at the library, get it on Amazon or your local bookseller, wherever, if there are any of those that still exist. And I really recommend this book. It's called Essentialism, Greg McKeown. Again, just a quick rave, just something that will get you right for 2020. I can't recommend it highly enough for my rave. Have you read it before?
I have not. No, okay. I just wrote it down. That sounds amazing. I definitely.
Yeah, it's just, and it is. What's funny is because I talk in my first. And I've been talking about this whole thing called content energy, and how if we focus on, being great in a few things, then mediocre. And his chart that he has on the first the third page looks exactly like mine. And I didn't even know it existed, but it's the whole same thing where you have your personal energy is going 17 different ways and there's all these arrows going out, or there's 1 or 2 arrows going at things that are really important to you. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Especially because we're distracted in all these different areas and we can be better. And I think this book will help you be better.
That's really cool. I'm definitely going to check that out. So my rave is one I talked about on my other little show, but it's really, really good. And it was very heartening. It was one of those heartening posts. So every year, do you read and take a look at the Neiman Lab folks?
Oh yeah,
do you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, by the way, folks, that's a site that for any of you who are into content and content marketing, that you should frequent. It's basically all about journalism, and for many, many years, one of the sort of forefront leaders in the thinking around what's going on in journalism. And every year they do their 2020 or certainly the year ahead predictions, and this year. They did their predictions for journalism in 2020, where they bring in a bunch of thinkers in the space of journalism and sort of predict what's going to happen in the coming year. And one of those predictions, and of course we'll link this in the show notes, comes from a current journalist, and her name is Alana Levinson, and she talks about what we would call content marketing. And to hear, for so many. Years, we'll say, we've heard journalists have been rather skeptical about coming over to, that many of them will say, oh, I had to go to the dark side or I had to go to the brand side. And that was really sort of, they looked at it like this is sort of, they didn't want to go there. Basically, they looked at it as somehow less pure than what they were doing before, working for a newspaper or a magazine, et cetera, et cetera. And Alana, as she outlines in her prediction, she basically says the headline of her prediction is brand-backed media gets another look, and you might as well retitle it content marketing gets another look, because that's what she talks about is she, when she goes back in time and sort of tells her story about 2016 and how much venture there was in publishing and media and how much money, and it was all focused on being viral and all this stuff. And she found a home with all of the layoffs, because she speaks to this article, which the number actually astounded me. 3,000 journalists were laid off in 2019. And as she calls it, the lifeboat for her, the opportunity for her was to go to a brand-backed media publication, which in her case was Mel Magazine, which of course is the Dollar Shave Club magazine. Wonderful lifestyle magazine, by the way, if you haven't seen it. And so great content marketing example. And she goes on through and speaks to some of the examples of other companies. Mostly she speaks to the sort of consumer packaged goods industry and talks about the various kinds of magazines they've launched, some of them successful, some of them not so successful. But basically she ends up by saying, hey, listen, this is going to be something that, really speaks in the future to our ability to find a lifeboat, find a safe harbor in a storm for journalists to go and join these brands with their efforts, because it doesn't have to be the dark side. It doesn't have to be the sort of place where we sort of retreat to. It can rather be someplace where we can go lead and be. And it was just really heartening to me to see a journalist really speak this way and to really talk about it in such a wonderful way. The only thing I would add to Alana's thing, and I would sort of belabor her metaphor a bit, because she speaks to it in the idea that maybe it's not a lifeboat, maybe it's a door that is a floating door from the sinking ship, which of course is the reference to Titanic and our friend Leo and Kate, who find themselves on that door, and only one of them can fit on the door. And what I would suggest is that content marketing, if you just look a little harder, if you look a little wider and you look a little broader, what you're going to find is that door is not only big enough to fit Leo and Kate, it's big enough to fit the whole damn ship. So, you can that's a big door. And so yeah. I think if you're a journalist out there, there's a lot of opportunity, and I would encourage you to go look at it. So that's my rave.
Well, what's been nice is, and you and I have been around long enough to see this happen. 10 years ago, journalists were looked down on significantly for making that jump.
Yeah.
And now that's not the case anymore. And
because there's some really good publications out there. That's the real key is that some of these brands are putting out really good work. And that's the...
Yeah, it's not a brand shill. I mean, exactly right. That there's and as you mentioned, a lot in many cases, and maybe even going to most cases, there's way more resources on the brand side.
Yeah.
Than there are in the media side to do some great content.
Here is a bold prediction, maybe not for 2020, but for the coming 5 years. So if we have seen in the last couple of years, Amazon and Netflix and Apple be nominated for and win Golden Globes and Oscars, I'm going to predict in the next 5 years we're going to see a brand win a Pulitzer.
Oh, I would like to see that. I can't go against that. Because
I think that's an interesting idea.
Well, and then your point about Starbucks before. Starbucks is rolling out huge media initiatives. They could be the one. I mean, there could be many of those that happen. So
yeah,
I like it.
All right, Mister. Well, you got New Year's plans? What's going on here?
Yeah, we're hanging out. We've got our group that we do New Year's Eve every year. So we're going to the National Comedy Museum this year to go check that out. We've never been there before. Some of our friends have, so we're looking forward to doing that and a couple other shenanigans as well that go along with that. So we're looking forward to having some time off. Are you going out on New Year's Eve? What do you do?
You know, the funny thing is that we are also doing New Year's Eve with just the quote unquote adults.
Yeah, exactly.
And we are going to a place here in Los Angeles that is obscenely expensive. We've saved up. We're going to go have this experience. It's called Vespertine. For any of you who want to go Google it, it's really, really expensive. And it's supposed to be this food experience, right?
Oh,
where
man.
You get moved around and there's lighting and it's Michelin rated and it's a whole thing. Unfortunately, I've been told you're not allowed to take pictures inside, so you're not allowed to do anything and on that score. So I won't be able to. I don't think I'll be able to share any pictures, but we're looking forward to it as a sort of quote unquote big food experience to sort of cap off our year, and then we'll be quiet at home for New Year's Eve. Yeah.
But I like the no pictures thing. I like the thing. Keep the smartphone in your pocket or whatever.
Yeah, there are pictures, by the way, on the web that you can actually see some of the food, and it's quite astounding, quite frankly, some of the food that you see. And you go, oh, I would actually like to take a picture of that, but we'll see. We'll see what it's all about. I'll report next time we're on the air.
Looking forward to absolutely. I'm looking forward to that. That's great.
All right, folks. Well, that is it for this, our, I guess, last show of the year, first show of the year, however you are looking at it. We are signing off. If you like this episode number 224, get yourself a subscription for the new year if you haven't done so already. A shiny, brand new 2020 version of your subscription. You've got more than one email address. Get yourself a few of these subscribes. There's no reason not to double up. And of course, review us out on your favorite podcatcher of choice, the store. We need those reviews. Share it out with your friends. There are still people out there who don't know that we're back, which is just weird to me. But yeah, there's a bunch of people out there who don't know that we're back, and it's been nice to hear from them over the holidays. We're publishing twice a month now, and we'll continue to do so in 2020. So if you're enjoying it, keep on listening. And if you want more of Joe, where do they find you these days? You've got your shiny new website up and running.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go to Joe Pulizzi, PULIZZI.com, and you can get my every other week newsletter. And of course, my book is available for free right now. My first novel, thriller. It's called The Will to Die. Just go to thewilltodie.com and you can listen to it on your favorite podcatcher absolutely free.
There you go. And for me, it's contentadvisory.net or tci.inc, tci.inc, or TCA, sorry, tca.inc. And you can find all the stuff that we're talking about there with regard to content and technology and all that kind of stuff. And of course, hashtag us up, won't you? Story ideas. We want them all. Everything we talked about, of course, will be in the show notes and linked into and all of that stuff. Hashtag us at This Old Marketing. And of course, remember, folks, it's your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you in a couple of weeks on This Old Marketing.